Greeting and welcome to the Intensive Success Growth. I'm your host, Nishant Sharma. Please give warm welcome to our guest, Ron. Ron is a community advocate, podcast author. Welcome, Ron, to my show.
Thank you.
Okay. And let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, to be honest with you, I don't want to over politicize your channel, but I was a victim of false prosecution in Montana, United States. I maintained what I call a political prisoner status under their kind of thumb. I spent the last 18 years fighting against the corruption in the state of Montana. And as a consequence, I've learned a lot of things about how corrupt Montana is, the government, and things that people just don't know, they aren't aware of. So originally, I started writing a blog, which is a bulletin blog online, detailing the information. That graduated into actually publishing a book, United States Political Prisoners Since 2004, which is one of my 25 publications. And then someone who had read my blogs and my book, my producer, Bill Russell, got a hold of me, and he wanted to talk me into doing a podcast. Now, I hadn't previously thought about doing a podcast because it just seemed like it was a daunting technological thing to overcome. No. But so basically what happened was he came to me and he talked to me and he says, you've got a lot of information, you have a lot of personal experience, you have a lot of information people who aren't aware of and resources, and you should really talk to people about it. And so I created the Great Montana Conspiracy podcast with the idea of conveying information across to people that people need to know. They need to know about their government. They need to know where their government's mind's at, where their motivations are, whether they're protecting their civil interests or violating them. So that was where my motivation came from my channel.
Why do people fail?
Oh, fail.
Yes.
People fail, I think, because either they set unrealistic objectives in life, i.e. they say, okay, I want to start a skating business, but I'm going to just spend 80 hours a week outside skating, but I'm not really going to promote myself. Unrealistic expectation. Someone's going to discover them magically because they get so good at what they do, or they spend so much time doing what they do, or they simply underestimate the demand for their services. In the case of a lot of people I've worked with, I've helped people do business plans, I've helped people do marketing, I've helped people do things like that, promotions. A lot of time it comes down to simply overselling their service or overpricing their service. They think that their service or their resources are worth more than what people are willing to pay. It's basic economic supply and demand. So it's sometimes getting people off that elite expectation is difficult. But I think ultimately it comes down to two factors. It comes down to the individual flexibility of the person who's starting a business, or the perception of what the public's demand is for that business. And if you get those two to balance, I think any idea can be successful.
Okay. What's your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
Well, my greatest failure is going to prison for suing my local government. Honestly, I have been an advocate for so long and been a paralegal in California and done so many different things. I really had not expected to run into a government that was so dead set and people being unwilling to listen to anything, that I just basically went in very, I don't want to say the word arrogant, naive is probably a better word, naivety, where I thought that the government protected me, my civil rights protected me. And I think my greatest failure happened when I realized that you don't really have any rights unless the government you live under actually wants to give them to you. So how do I recover? Every day I do this. I talk to people, I explain, I'm willing to share my experiences. I'm willing to give cautionary tales about how to approach things and how not to approach things, not telling people not to try, but definitely telling people to be aware of potential consequences and try to protect themselves against that. So I think in this case, the best way I can say I recovered from my failure is simply becoming more aware and being willing to take my experiences and sharing them with others so that others can benefit from the knowledge I have gained.
What's your success secrets that others can model from you?
Perseverance. You just got to keep pushing at it. If you fail once and give up, then you've accomplished nothing. I often will tell people that the objective to life is the pursuit, because once you're reaching the end game, there's no longer anything left to chase. So pursuing the idea, being vigilant, being steadfast, and believing in yourself to be able to deliver upon what you're trying to do, I think is critically important to success.
What's your company motto?
Depending upon probably the, well, for the podcast, it is only the truth, because it's all about exposing the truth. It's all about revealing what, other people don't want you to know. So the truth is a critically important aspect to my life. It's a critically important aspect I think it should be to anybody's life. One of my favorite expressions is, a lie is far easier to believe than the truth because it can be molded to the ear of the listener. The truth, by comparison, is far more rigid and less likely to be believed. But the truth has to be able to be spoken, because if you can't speak the truth, then nothing but the lies prevail. So only the truth is the summation of the theme of my podcast.
Okay. Who is your ideal client?
Who is my ideal client? Anyone who wants to listen with an open mind. Somebody who wants to take information and learn, and for that information matter, share the information they have, because it's not just me. I don't have a unique perspective that nobody in the world has experienced. I am just one person. The only thing that makes me different is my being vocal. I speak out. I'm willing to talk. I'm willing to share. I'm willing to take the information I've learned and make sure that other people know it. So the ideal client would be somebody who comes to me and says, hey, I like what you're doing. This is what I like about it. This is what I don't like about it. And these are my experiences. Can you share my experiences and my knowledge? Or can you hit this topic because it's really relevant to me? Anybody that gives me input and feedback, and anybody who can listen at the same time, they're all critically important to me.
How do you find your ideal client?
Mostly what I do is I simply sit out there and I say, come to me. I talk to everybody though. Most authors have you'll find a lot of them are very, want to talk, they're very shy. I'm a social butterfly. I literally talk to anybody about everything. People shy away typically. I've got a criminal conviction. I've got all these years. I was accused. People don't talk about that stuff, and I do. So when I go out there and I'm trying to make sure that what I'm saying has a positive message, while at the same time it's informative, it's all critically important when it comes to that. Did I answer the question right?
Yes. How do you deliver 5-star client experience?
I just want somebody who likes what I'm saying, who appreciates what I'm saying, and can take advantage of the information I'm conveying. Because for me, it's not about profit. It's more about a community. I very strongly believe in community. I believe we're all individual cells of a larger body. When we're raising each other up and we're making the body healthy, if we're pushing each other down, then we're making the body sick. And I'd much rather make the body healthy. So for me, getting a 5-star client is all about trying to get that person to say, what you're doing has value to me, and it contributes to my life and makes my life a positive thing, because then I am helping raise them up.
How do you handle rejections?
Boy, that's a hard question. Rejections are something that comes every day. Sometimes they're hard. I mean, sometimes it hits me and I go into depression and it just seems overwhelming. But I think honestly that the best answer to that is being stubborn. I'm stubborn, and although it may blow me back for a little bit, I always know I'm going to find myself back on my feet, and then I'm going to be right back to what I was doing before. It may knock me down a little bit, but rejection is a part of life, positive and negative. We have to balance it.
Okay. How do you handle angry client?
Well, if it's somebody it depends on if the anger is appropriate or whether it's simply somebody who's trolling you. And I do get trolls. I think everybody online gets trolls, where we just get people who they just want to be negative, that they're miserable, so they're going to make everybody else's life miserable. If it's somebody like a troll who's just trying to get a bite, just trying to get attention, I block them and don't deal with them, because I'm not going to give them the time of day to waste my energy on it. Now, if it's a genuine thing I've done or an issue that I've raised that has sparked a concern or a controversy, I will talk to them as the best of my ability to do so, because I believe communication is the first and foremost aspect to any kind of socialization or social, relationship that we have between client and podcaster. I think we have to see each other in a capacity that we have to share and come to common ground. There are people who are just going to be completely unreasonable. There's just no reasoning with them. And we reach a point where you say, okay, I can't reason with you. I'm cutting it off. Call me back when you calm down. Or reach out to me when you feel like being sociable, because I don't have to take your abuse. But for the most part, my first go-to response with a legitimate issue is to try to talk and to communicate, to express where I'm coming from. If I agree that I've offended them, I'll apologize, because let's face it, we're all capable of offending other people without realizing it. So long as we have an open mind to approach other people, I think other people have an open mind about approaching you.
Great. So what are you grateful for today?
Honestly, I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful you contacted me and asked to interview me, because it honestly has been the light of my day. It's something I've been looking forward to. I like being interviewed. I like doing interviews. I like the podcast experience. And quite frankly, I'm grateful for you reaching out and giving me an opportunity to speak, because it just was something to really get my juices going today, something to really look forward to.
Thank you. So how do you start your day?
Well, normally it depends on what my plan is for the day, because my days are so varied. Sometimes I have a legal paper to write, or I'll have chapters to write on a book. Like right now, I'm working on my 26th book on addictions. And so I plan my day around, okay, I've got to get my cats fed. I've got to get myself to eat. I've got to get myself dressed. And I'm going to go down to a public place and work. I work right now at a local restaurant called 4Bs. And there's a little shout out to my local restaurant. But I go down there and I work for about 3 hours. And then I go off and I do a lot of community service. I help people. Like I went over and helped an elderly friend cook up some dinner, helped him do some shopping. I run people to the store. And of course I was preparing for this today. So, but usually I try to set a schedule, and whatever the schedule is, I try to do my best to set it to certain times, because if I set it to certain times, it's easier for me to make sure the individual items get done. So I start my day primarily, I guess, by scheduling it out, figuring out what I have to do, how much time I have to do it in, and then trying to set my schedule around that.
What's your plan to achieve your goal?
Honestly, it's just about plugging it in. Like I said earlier, stubbornness, keep going, pushing forward, perseverance. It's all about just sticking to the idea, sticking to the model. Right now, like I said, you're aware of the Great Montana Conspiracy podcast. I'm preparing a new podcast called the I Am Project, or the I-Man Project, about individual emotions and addictions and abuse control relationships, and the idea of being individual and pursuing our individual self through difficult times. So it's the idea about trying to respond to what people want to hear about, what people need to hear about, and trying to get myself in a position to where I'm able to do that without, at the same time, hurting myself. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So in case you don't achieve your goal, how would you feel that?
Honestly, I failed so many times in the past, and I just pick myself up and start something new. I've had multiple businesses. I've run multiple nonprofits. I've had multiple efforts. I've been, as I mentioned, I've got 25 published books out there. So every time I bring out a new book, I'm hoping that will be the one that breaks the glass ceiling, that gets me out there, that gets people to recognize what I'm doing, whether it be my fantasy novels or my trivia books or my nonfictions. I'm always on that project, and that project is going to be the one that gets me recognized, that gets people to start paying attention to me. And if it doesn't, then I go on to the next book, or I go on to the next episode, or go on to the next podcast. If I have to go back and fix something that I've done that has created a stumbling block, I will do that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm just going to pick myself up and find something else to do, because it's all about keeping going and moving forward.
Okay. What's your favorite book, and what's your top 3 learning?
Okay, my favorite book?
Yes.
I didn't catch the second part.
And what's your top 3 learning?
Okay, favorite book and
what's your top 3 learning?
Top 3 learning?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my favorite book would probably have to be trying to avoid talking about my own books, because obviously my own books are my favorite books. That's just a given. But probably to pursue somebody else's books, I would probably say, I think probably my favorite book is still Remedy Feist's Fairy Tale. It's a real world fantasy that takes an idea which is abnormal for the author and puts a fantasy setting about fairies and the old world into a modern day setting about a family who moves into a property and encounters all these things going on around them. And it's done so well and it interacts so well, I think, with the ideas of how real people would interact with these fantastical concepts. But I think it's a really enjoyable piece of work. I've read it several times and I actually really enjoyed that book. Now, the second part was the three what?
No, I said only, what's your top 3 learning from that book?
Well, from my top 3 learning from the book. Yeah, I think I covered that. Yeah, basically the idea is that it's going to be something that's positive, that's important, that's it's all about real world experiences with applications. Hey, is it possible to pause the podcast for a minute? I'm running out of power on my end. I need to check my.
Okay, great. So who is your living mentor and what's the impact?
I don't know that I have a living mentor. I'd probably say the closest thing I have to it is my producer, Bill Russell. He's the one who, honestly, with the podcast, he's the one who inspires me. He's the one who keeps me moving forward. When I'm down or overcome or just overburdened by what I'm dealing with, he's the one who always comes to me and says, hey, you've got a lot more than you think. He's the positive pusher behind me. He's the one who gets me to keep moving forward and seeing that, I'm not isolated. So I think probably I'd have to say him.
Okay, great. So can I take interview of like your mentor?
Well, I will start out with an idea. I will say, okay, for instance, let's talk about police overcriminalization or police overmilitarization. The idea that in the United States right now, we have a problem where the US government is passing down literally military equipment to local police departments, where they're actually responding with SUVs and submachine guns and you name it, they're showing up at crime scenes just macked out like they're invading the country. And so I would start out with a topic like that and I say, okay, police militarization. So I will go online and I'll look for what other people are saying about it. And I'll get ideas. I know what I know about it, I know my background, but I want to make sure I reinforce what I'm saying with statistics, with genuine information, and not just convey opinion. I want to make sure the information I'm conveying has backup, that it's something that's relative, that it actually has a consistent point of view, that's not just, hey, I feel like talking about this today and this is what I'm going to talk about. It's got to be more than my opinion. It's got to be actual facts. So I will spend a good day I'll write up a script about what I'm going to write, not the script in front of me as I'm working on my podcast. So I will know all the points I'm going to get on, all the information I want to convey, and I try to get it across. So the process for the podcasts is that I simply make sure that I start with an idea and I make sure I research that idea thoroughly to make sure that I'm not either leaving information out or I'm not misrepresenting a thing I think is true but isn't. As far as my book is concerned, my books, I will, when it comes to my novels, my fantasy, I will literally go to sleep the night before thinking about what my characters are going to do. And I will let the ideas about what they're going to do. I do what I call method writing, which is, you heard of method acting, I'm sure, where actors feel the emotions of the characters they're portraying. I do the same thing with my characters in my books. So I always have a point of view of a character in a chapter, and they will come across, and I will go to sleep the night before thinking about their actions and how they would react to certain circumstances and give them the lead as I'm going off into sleep with the idea that they're going to be my inspiration of what I'm doing rather than me trying to force them to a point I want them to be.
Okay.
So depends upon what I'm working on, depends upon how I do it.
Okay, no issue. How can I support you?
Mostly it's about conveying information. If you like what I do, if you like the information I say, share my videos, talk to other people about the information, send them back to my information and have them share it. If one person shares my information, my video with 5 people, and then they share it with 5 people, it just compounds itself and just goes on and on. And the more, and really, I can't say it enough, but one of my axioms in life is knowledge that is not used or is not shared has no value. So if my information I'm conveying is not shared, is not gone out there, is not disseminated into the community, into the world, then it has no value. The way it has value is if you share that information, you convey it, either in conversation or simply sending people back to my information, and then actively getting out and doing something about it. Don't just take the information and sit on it and go, well, that's just terrible. We have a terrible world. Actually try to do something about it. Be involved in politics, be involved in being informed. One of the hardest things in our world, I think, is the idea that people have preconceived ideas and prejudices and they just latch onto them. Like right now we have this Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. And I have friends who, of course, Johnny Depp got to spend 2 weeks, spinning his side of the story. So everyone's all convinced, oh, Amber Heard is this terrible person. And they never even let Amber Heard actually get to the point of telling her side of the story, and their opinion's already made. They need to keep their mind open. They need to listen to both sides. They need to take all information from all aspects and then reach a decision. People take what they call first impressions. And the first impression is what people believe in. If I walk up to somebody and I say, oh, that guy looks like a jerk, that tends to be how I'm going to perceive them for the rest of my life, unless I'm open-minded and I actually take the time to talk to them, get to know them. And you walk in with a preset idea, then you walk in with an idea that you're never going to know all the truth. So I think the most important thing towards getting that information out there, supporting everybody and doing what we can, is about making sure that we all have an open mind about this information, and then we take that information and we do something with it.
Yes, right. Okay. What would you like to say about your guest experience on this show?
I think it's great. I think it's a wonderful experience. I'm sorry we had a little bit of a connection issue right up front about our time frame. The time zones around the world, who knows? But honestly, what it comes down to, I think I love this experience. And I mean, I'm grateful more than I can say for the chance to speak with you today.
Okay. What's your final word?
Oh, my final word is pursue the truth. Always pursue the truth, even if it's something you don't like. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle said, when all other facts and details are removed, I'm not going to get the quote exactly right. When all other facts and details are removed, whatever remains must be the truth. You have to be willing to sift out those other details. You have to be willing to learn the truth. And the truth isn't always what you want, but you've got to be willing to accept it when you discover it.
Yes. Thanks, Ron, for sharing your wisdom with us on the behalf of our community and team. We really appreciate you. Until the next time, all good wishes to you.
Thank you to you as well. Thank you so much for the opportunity.